I scored a band 9 in IELTS reading 3 times. To get a high band score, you must know how to find the correct answers quickly. So you must have a reading strategy. And this is what I'm going to teach you in this video. We solve an IELTS reading practice test together step by step, and I show you how to find the correct answers really fast. If you are going to take your IELTS soon, check out my IELTS materials. There I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to give high scoring answers. And of course, we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link in the description below. And now let's get started. Here you can see the reading passage, and here are the questions. When you start your IELTS reading test, don't read the passage first, because at that point you have no idea what the questions ask you to do, so you don't know what you need to look for in the passage, and this means that you waste valuable time. Instead, go directly to the questions. Figure out what the questions ask you to do, and then have a look at the passage and search for the relevant information. We start with questions 14 to 19. The instructions say, reading passage 2 has 6 paragraphs, A to F. Which paragraph contains the following information? Write the correct letter, A to F, in boxes 14 to 19 on your answer sheet. So we need to figure out which paragraph contains the information that we can see here. Let's start with question number 14. A major transition in the Stratemeyer syndicate ownership structure. This is a keyword because this seems to be a name, and you can find names like this, exactly like that, in the passage because they cannot be paraphrased. So this can help us find the information fast. So let's look at the passage and let's see where we can find something about a major transition in the Stratemeyer syndicate ownership structure. So let's take a look. As you can see, the word Stratemeyer appears very often here, because the whole passage is about Stratemeyer. So this means that this keyword is not super helpful because it appears too often. So let's take a look at the paragraphs. Paragraph A. Does it talk about a change in the ownership structure? Paragraph A seems to give an introduction and talks about what Edward Stratemeyer did. He founded a syndicate in order to make a profit of the market of entertaining books for children, but there is nothing about a major transition. Let's continue with B. B talks about his first series, The Rover Boys. So this seems to be a book, and it also says that he started paying authors to write for different series and so on, but there is nothing about his syndicate and the change in the ownership structure. Paragraph C talks about one of his characters, Nancy Drew, a girl detective, and the passage continues talking about Nancy Drew here. So this seems to be about Nancy Drew, so a specific book, but not about a change in the ownership structure. Paragraph D says that Stratemeyer died in 1930, and this is interesting. Here it says, willing his company to his 2 daughters. One soon sold her part to the other, Harriet Adams. Harriet was closely involved in the production of the Nancy Drew books and wrote the outline of the story that was given to the authors. And then the passage continues talking about which books she had written. Now let's again have a look at the beginning here. The beginning of paragraph D says that Stratemeyer died and that he gave his company to his 2 daughters. And then one daughter sold her part to the other, Harriet Adams. So this is a change in ownership structure, right? Ownership structure refers to who owns a company. So here the paragraph says that first Stratemeyer owned it, then his 2 daughters owned it, and then only one daughter, Harriet Adams, owned it. So the correct answer here is D. We write down D here. Let's continue with question 15. The motivation for using different writers. Where does the passage talk about the motivation for using different writers? Paragraph A gives an introduction. We had a look at that. There is nothing about different writers there. B. Let's take a closer look at B, because we only had a look at the first sentence. B says, Stratemeyer's first series, The Rover Boys, was widely popular and continued across 30 books until 1926. He realized that series sold better than individual books because readers were drawn to the characters they knew, but he did not have time to develop all the different ideas he came up with. Therefore, he started paying authors to write for different series under different pseudonyms or fake names, so that the name on each book remained the same. What does the information here tell us? It says the motivation for using different writers. Motivation means reason. And paragraph B gives us a reason that he started paying authors to write for different series, so that he started to use different writers. The reason is that he did not have time to develop all the different ideas he came up with, so he couldn't do it alone. He needed other people to help him. So the correct answer is B. We can find this information in paragraph B. Let's continue with question number 16, the patterns for writing books for the Stratemeyer Syndicate. We are looking for a pattern, so a method or an outline for writing books. Now, where can we find something about that in the passage? There is nothing in paragraph A. Also, there is nothing in B. We had a look at that. Paragraph C is about Nancy Drew. It doesn't talk about general patterns. We read D. There is nothing about patterns. What about E? Let's check out paragraph E. We will start reading from here. One of the secrets to the success of the Stratemeyer Syndicate was Edward Stratemeyer's keen sense of business. When releasing a new series, he would publish the first several books at the same time to act as a hook to catch readers and get them interested in the characters. He also had a strict set of rules about the writing style. For example, the chapters must end in the middle of an exciting situation so that the reader is eager to continue with the next chapter. This is enough for us, right? Because we are looking for a pattern, so a method or an outline for writing books. And this paragraph tells us that he had a strict set of rules about the writing style. So this is one technique. And another technique is that he published the first several books at the same time. So this means that the correct answer here is E. I'm going to write down E because this is in paragraph E. Next question. The reason for forming the Stratemeyer Syndicate. This may be at the start. Let's have a look at the first paragraph, because here the Stratemeyer Syndicate is introduced. Here it says, Edward Stratemeyer founded the Stratemeyer Syndicate in 1899 with a clear goal in mind. He wanted to make a profit of the untapped market of entertaining books for children. A reason is a goal. This is paraphrasing his goal. So the reason for creating the syndicate was that he wanted to make a profit. A profit of what? Of the untapped market of entertaining books for children. So paragraph A is the correct answer. So I'm going to write down A. Next question. The impact of the Stratemeyer Syndicate on readers. We already had a look at these paragraphs here. They didn't seem to talk about the impact on readers. Let's have a look at paragraph E again, because we haven't read the whole paragraph yet. Is there anything about an impact? I'm scanning the paragraph, but I can't see anything about an impact. Here again, the paragraph talks about Nancy, but there is nothing about an impact on the readers. Now, let's check out paragraph F. The Stratemeyer Syndicate was a major influence on American children throughout the 20th century. If something has an impact, it means that it has an influence, right? So we seem to be in the correct paragraph here. This is about the influence on American children throughout the 20th century. Let's continue reading. Numerous polls have highlighted how widespread the readership was. Many important public figures cite the influence of some of the characters on their dreams and development. For example, the Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton Both claim they were inspired by Nancy Drew's independence and sense of justice. So we've already figured out that Stratemeyer wrote a book where Nancy Drew plays an important role. So this is about the influence of his books on his readers. So we can find that in paragraph F. I'm going to write down F. Next question. A description of the creation of the Nancy Drew character. We already know that, right? We saw that there was one paragraph dedicated to Nancy Drew, and this is this one. Now, let's check whether the paragraph talks about her character here. Here it says, he gave the idea of Nancy Drew, a 16-year-old high school graduate who helps others, to Mildred Wirt Benson, and she wrote the first book of the series, The Secret of the Old Clock, which was published in 1930. Benson's version of the girl detective was outspoken and independent, somewhat different to the more traditional heroine that Stratemeyer had planned. The book was immensely popular and so on. So this paragraph definitely talks about the character of Nancy Drew. So the correct answer is C. Amazing. We are done with questions 14 to 19. By the way, if you want more IELTS reading practice tests, hit the like button and write yes in the comments. If you want me to talk about something else, tell me your video wish in the comments so I know what you would like to see on this channel. Now, let's continue solving this test. Let's continue with questions 20 to 24. The instructions say, complete the sentences below. Choose no more than 3 words from the passage for each answer. This is super important. If you write more than 3 words, the answer is wrong. So make sure you read the instructions carefully. Write your answers in boxes 20 to 24 on your answer sheet. Now, let's take a look at the first question. Stratemeyer realized that there was a market for children's books that were something rather than educational or moralistic. So, which word are we looking for? That were, and then we need to figure out the correct word. So, we look for a market for children's books that were something rather than educational or moralistic. Where does the passage talk about the market? This was in the first paragraph, right? So, which word fits? He wanted to make a profit of the untapped market of entertaining books for children. So he wanted to make a profit of the market of entertaining books. Entertaining is the correct answer. And if you have a look at the next sentence, you can see that it says, at that time, books were marketed mostly for adults, and books for children were almost exclusively educational or moralistic. So he wanted to make entertaining books, something different, not educational and moralistic. So educational, no, not educational and moralistic. So entertaining is the correct answer. I'm going to write down entertaining here. Next question. Authors used something when they wrote for the Stratemeyer Syndicate so that all books in a series had the same name. What did the authors use so that all books in a series had the same name? Where does the passage talk about other people writing the books? We already had a look at that paragraph. This was paragraph B. You may remember that. Because B said, therefore, he started paying authors to write for different series under different pseudonyms or fake names so that the name on each book remained the same. Here we have the answer, right? The name on each book should remain the same. And what did they use? Pseudonyms. Make sure you write this correctly. This is a difficult word, okay? So pay attention here. I'm going to write down pseudonyms. Next question, 22. The real name of the first author of the Nancy Drew series was. We are looking for a name of the first author of the Nancy Drew series. So let's take a look. Which paragraph talked about Nancy Drew? It was paragraph C. This paragraph was about Nancy Drew here. And who was the first author? You may remember that this sentence here said, he gave the idea of Nancy Drew to Mildred Wirt Benson, and she wrote the first book of the series. So the real name of the first author of the Nancy Drew books was Mildred Word Benson. So I'm going to write down that name. Here you need to pay attention. Make sure you write the name correctly. Check again, have a look at the passage if you are unsure, because if you make a mistake, the answer is wrong. Next question. The original Nancy Drew books were rewritten, removing racial comments and dated references with the goal of keeping the character something. Now, we had a look at the paragraph about Nancy Drew, but I can't remember anything about removing racial comments. But what I remember is that there was something about rewriting the Nancy Drew books in the passage. We came across that word, and it was in paragraph D, which was about one of the daughters of Stratemeyer, who later owned the company, Harriet Adams. Because here it says, you may remember that sentence from earlier, here it says, Harriet was closely involved in the production of the Nancy Drew books and wrote the outline of the story that was given to the authors. In the 1950s, she rewrote the earlier books. We read until this point here, so rewrote is stated here. Now, what does the sentence say? Removing dated references and racial comments. This is what it says here, right? It says the original Nancy Drew books were rewritten, removing racial comments and dated references with the goal of keeping the character what? Which word do we need here? Let's continue reading from here. In the process, Nancy's age was changed to 18 because the graduation age has changed. So this is one change. And her live-in housekeeper evolved from a servant to a mother-like woman who cared for Nancy. Over time, Nancy has undergone other changes in order to keep her up to date. Let's again have a look at our sentence. It says that the books were rewritten with the goal of keeping the character something. Of keeping the character what? Here it says Nancy has undergone other changes in order to keep her up to date. The character should be kept up to date, and that's why the books were rewritten. So I'm going to write down up to date. Amazing. Next question. The Stratemeyer Syndicate rule said that book protagonists could not something because book sales dropped when that happened in a series. I don't remember reading anything about that it was a rule that book protagonists could not do something because book sales would drop. Now, let's check out the passage. Where does the passage talk about that? There was nothing here in these paragraphs. We had a look at them. There was nothing about that in these paragraphs. Also, in paragraph F, this was about the influence on people, the influence of the books on people. So the only paragraph where we may find this information is E, because we haven't really had a look at the whole paragraph yet. So let's check it out. We read until here. This was about that there were strict rules about the writing style. And then there are examples for the writing style. The chapters must end in the middle of an exciting situation and so on. But what are we looking for? We want to know what protagonists could not do. Where does it talk about the protagonists? Can we see the word protagonists here? Here, I can see it. Here it says protagonists. So let's take a closer look at this sentence. Another detail was that the characters in each series were not supposed to age at all. And Stratemeyer refused to let the protagonists get married in the books he published. That rule was made because in one of his earlier series, Stratemeyer had given the protagonist a romantic relationship that led to marriage, and the book sales dropped greatly after that volume. This is what is stated in our sentence. The book sales dropped. This is stated here. So, protagonists could not what? Because book sales dropped. They could not get married. This is the correct answer, because otherwise book sales would drop, because he had already made the experience that this had happened. So they could not get married. And this means that we are done with questions 20 to 24. Let's continue with the next questions. 25 to 26. Choose 2 letters, A to E. Write the correct letters in boxes 25 and 26 on your answer sheet. Which 2 of the following claims about the Nancy Drew series are made by the writer? So this is important. You need to write the correct letters on your answer sheet. Don't write anything else. If you write something else, the answer is wrong, even if you found the correct answer. So make sure you write down the letters here. 1 of these, 2 of these, actually, we need 2. So, which 2 of the following claims about the Nancy Drew series are made by the writer? The Nancy Drew series is described in paragraph C. I remember that. So let's take a closer look at paragraph C and let's see what it says. Answer choice A says the series was adapted for movies and television. Can we find anything about movies and television in paragraph C? I can see the word television and movies here. Amazing. So let's read this sentence more closely. Ultimately, the series ran to 175 books, a television show, and several movies. So this claim is made by the writer about the Nancy Drew series. The series was adapted for movies and television. So we write down A. This is correct. B says Walter Carrick wrote 175 books in the series. We are looking for this number here, 175, because this is a keyword. And we can find this number exactly like that in the passage if the passage talks about it. We just read about this number actually here in this sentence. And here we can see the name Walter Carrick. So let's read this sentence more closely. The second author to write as Carolyn Keene was Walter Carrick, but there were many more over the years. Ultimately, the series ran to 175 books. So this means that Walter Carrick was one of the writers. So he wrote some of the 175 books, but there were also other writers who wrote books. So it wasn't only him who wrote the 175 books. So this is not stated by the writer. Now, C. Nancy's age never changed because it was against the syndicate rules. Is there something about Nancy's age in the passage? Now, I remember that there was the rule that the protagonists cannot age, right? I remember that here. It was in paragraph C. The characters in each series were not supposed to age at all. But there is nothing specific about Nancy Drew here. And if you remember that, here in where was it? In paragraph D. This paragraph says that Harriet rewrote the Nancy Drew books, and it says that she changed Nancy's age to 18 because the graduation age had changed. So this was one of the changes she made. And this means that this is not stated by the writer that Nancy's age never changed. Indeed, it did change. It changed to 18 because the graduation age had changed. So C is incorrect. D. Sandra Day O'Connor decided that she wanted a career like Nancy's. I remember that we read about that name. We read it somewhere in the passage. Let's scan the passage for this name. I think it was at the end where they talked about the influence of the Nancy Drew books on people. And here I can see it. Here it says, Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton both claim they were inspired by Nancy Drew's independence and sense of justice. Okay, it says that Sandra Day O'Connor said that she was inspired by Nancy Drew, but it doesn't say that she decided she wanted to have a career like Nancy's. So this is not stated by the writer. E. Nancy helped Hillary Rodham Clinton feel a sense of justice. Now, again, Hillary Rodham Clinton is a keyword, and we know where this is in the passage because we just read about it right here. So, what does it say? It says that Sandra Day O'Connor and Hillary Rodham Clinton both claim they were inspired by Nancy Drew's independence and sense of justice. So Hillary Rodham Clinton says she was inspired by Nancy Drew's sense of justice. And here it says Nancy helped Hillary Rodham Clinton feel a sense of justice. This is what the passage says. So this claim is made by the writer. And this means that we write down E, and we are done with questions 25 to 26. And this means that we are done with this IELTS reading practice test. Well done! I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their IELTS score too. See you in the next video!